Good morning, cyber friends. This is Mitty Man coming at you again from Walker's Music with yet another word for the day. We want to say we give God all the praise and glory and honor for life, health, and strength. We thank Him for as well as it is, because it could have been the other way, people. We could have woke up in another dimension this morning, but thanks be to God to give us the victory through our Lord and Savior. In other words, He saw fit this morning to keep us in our current dimension. And we thank God for each and every one of you, cyber friends. You know who we are. I just wanted to say this morning, I was listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes, and I've noticed that a lot of his sermons, and he preaches on, and he used this word that I used this morning a lot, this dimension. And just about all of his sermons, he's been talking about moving into the next dimension. And I thought maybe, and I agree with him totally, that we cannot, a lot of us are we're trying to do things now that we used to do, and we keep trying to live, I should say, in a past dimension, when God has moved us into another dimension. And I thought maybe, and every time I thought about that, I thought about something. And for those of us that done got so religious that we don't forgot about it, I want to make certain that I can remind us of it a little bit. When we start talking about dimension, that's the dimension, and I'm not going to get into all the physics of it and everything. I could, but I'm not going to do that because it's not the scope of this video. But on the basic level, dimensions are measurements. On the basic level, there are measurements of space, time, mass. For one instance, we're going to use that in its basic form. We're going to use it as mass. In other words, let me see, can I get this here? All right, everybody remember the Commodores, right? Everybody remember the Commodores. I'm quite sure you remember Lionel Richie and all Ronald LaPreed and Stephen Mylon Williams and all of those cats. They was a group of guys that they all went to Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama. They formed a group and they named and called themselves the Commodores. And the Commodores were very, very, very famous. All throughout the 70s, they had a whole bunch of hit records. And I was a very big fan of Lionel Richie anyway. And I was a big fan of Commodore. Well, anyway, for those of you us that ain't forgot, we ain't got too religious to remember. Do y'all remember the song they called Brick House? Brick House. Well, I'm gonna tell you, when I believe it was Tom McClary, it was probably Walter Orange. I don't remember just right now. I could go find out, but I think it was Walter Orange. And he was the one that had that line of giving a perfect woman dimension, according to what we think there should be a perfect woman dimensions. And the dimensions were 36, 24, 36. Those were the dimensions of what we felt was a ideal figure for a female. And in that order, her bust line, her waistline, and her hip line. Those are the numbers that for an ideal woman at that particular time. It may have changed now, because some like them big, some like them small. In other words, regardless of what, but those were the dimensions of a perfect ideal female body. Now I'm going to say something that's hopefully that I can get everybody to understand. The reason I use that, and that's a perfect illustration of what I'm trying to portray this morning, about when you go into another dimension. Okay, every female, if her measurements around her body, at the bust line, if it measures 36, and at the waistline, if it measures 24, and our hip line measures 36, then this female, if you were to make any kind of dress, as long as you made it with those dimensions in that dress in space and time, or mass, I should say, if you made it where the upper part of that dress would fit a woman with a 36 bust line and a 24-inch waistline and a 36 hip line, if you condition and fashion that dress for those dimensions, any woman that was a 36, 24, 36 could wear that outfit. Any woman. No, it would be no prejudice whatsoever. But if she was 36, 24, 36, she could get into that dress or that outfit. Now, on the other hand, I'm almost start laughing, but I don't mean this in no disrespect, but just bear with me. On the other hand, if she were a 48, 40, 54, those were her dimensions. She could forget about getting in that first dress. They would have to create another dress. In other words, she's in another dimension. There was no way she can take her dimensions and get in that dress. They would have to they would have to make another dress that fit her dimensions, that would agree with her dimensions, I should say, and therefore she could get in that dress. Same way it is if you work backward or turning around, a woman that's so 36, 24, 36, you put a dress on her with those dimensions, it's gonna look baggy. She's gonna look like a mess. People, what I'm saying is, whatever dimension we're in, we fit that for that season in our life. In other words, this is, I think, is what Brother Bishop T.D. Jakes is trying to portray over to everybody. Whatever dimension you're in at that particular time, what you fit, that's what you got to remain. But when you are moved into another dimension, something's going to have to change. Either you're going to have to grow or your surrounding. Matter of fact, if your surrounding changes on you, God will automatically, when he get ready to move you into another dimension, he's going to make certain that you have those specifics. In other words, those coordinates going to agree with the dimension you're in. Right now, when we say about the spiritual, see, we're in the physical now. This is the same limitation that Jesus had. Jesus was limited by this earth suit in this dimension. In other words, we are fitted for this dimension. But when he graduated into that next dimension, and he went back to the dimension he had before. In other words, in the spiritual dimension, he was not limited by space or time. This body was not limited. So as we continue to grow in our mind, we must first renew our mind. When we are first saved, we are saved by grace automatically. We are saved by his loving kindness. We are automatically born again. But in order for us to walk in a new dimension, we must first renew our mind. It's a process, people. You just don't automatically jump up and start doing this thing. It's a process. And the process of renewing your mind is through by what? Spending daily time with God. Renewing your mind in his word. Seeing the way he do things. The way God does things. And then we try to imitate those things. And in the process, we change our way of thinking. Therefore, moving into another dimension from what we are right now. But let us remember, we will never fully come into fruition until Jesus changes us all. So it's a work in process. All the time we are here on this here planet. It's a work in process. We have not arrived. None of us, don't start trying to judge each other, because ain't none of us arrived in what we're supposed to be just yet. In other words, we have not fully come into that new dimension. The one, that final dimension that we will be in when Jesus changes us all. Therefore, I just thank God. I was thinking about when I was thinking about Bishop Jakes, and he always be teaching about dimension. And I just thought maybe that I would just come. I wanted to share with the Bible study, with the people. We're living in one dimensional right now. I know you've heard 3D, three-dimensional, or we get like the earth, the sphere. You got to have, in other words, you got to have at least two in order to find any spot on this world. It's a sphere, it's a circle. In order to find any one point or a location on this earth, you have to have two measurements. You got to have a longitude and a latitude to pinpoint any point on this earth. But now, whereas in a straight line, you don't have to do that. It just you can only be in one point at a time. That's one dimensional. In other words, I didn't want to get into all that, the technical aspects of it, but I wanted to more or less just base ourselves and let's think on the spiritual aspects of on this thing. You cannot do things, you should not be expected to do things. Once you have become born again, you're a new creature. You do not operate in the same dimension you did when you was a sinner, lost in sin. You have come to another dimension when you were born again. Now you operate in that dimension. The old you don't fit that. The old you do not fit this dimension. This is how come when we sin, and you heard me right. I said when we sin, yes, we don't feel good. Whereas before we could sin and don't feel anything. But we have been born again. Now your spirit has been reborn. You are alive now to God again. And therefore you want to do right. That spirit in you wants to do right. But when the flesh wins and you end up doing a sin or missing the mark, that's all it is. You don't feel good. You're not satisfied. Why? Because you're in another dimension now. The old way of doing things in that old dimension will not fit this new dimension. That's what I believe Brother Jakes is trying to get all of us to see. We thank God for preachers and teachers that will get up and teach the word. And I do believe, I mean, a lot of people may say a whole bunch of bad things. I didn't get here to say bad nothing about no one. I believe that when the preachers are preaching good and they are teaching good, I'm all for it. And if I don't feel, and if I can't find it in the word and I know one is doing something abstract, which is not in the word, then I don't still have to get on here and point fingers and call out names to make anybody, put anybody in a bad light. My job is to pray for them that they would get themselves straight. Because it's not God's will that any of us should perish. So if we see anyone that done missed the mark and they're doing some things that are not quite right, what we need to do is pray for that brother or sister. We need to pray for them that they will get back on track and not end up in the lake of fire. That's the only thing we need to do. Not talk about them and bring their name out and expose them. We're supposed to cover. Love covers. Love covers. And if we say we are children of the light, we will love each other and cover up and try to, what we say, incubate. That's what we should do. So with that being said, this minute man saying whatever you get into, if God is not in it, best you come out of it because it's going to come to nothing. We hope to practice choir tonight. Pine and Grove getting ready for our brother Deacon Cornell Shingles. His trial sermon is this Sunday, and I'm going to try to get the choir ready tonight. We're going to what we got to do and do what we have to. And we're going to say congratulations to our Deep, and we wish you Godspeed. That being said, this is Minute Man. Till the next time, peace, goodbye.